All right, we are live. Let's see how many people actually join us here. First of all, let's take a moment to make sure that everything works out. If you are hearing us, I'd like to just give a shout out at the chat at the right, and maybe throw in a hi or tell us where are you joining us from. There is already at least 10 of us here, so we'll be starting soon. But all right, while we get into it, let's start with the introductions. My name is Antti. I'm from Granite, and I operate under the very exciting title of inbound lead, which means basically that I'm the person who will at the end try to convince you to switch over from Excel or any other solution to Granite. Here with me is someone who actually knows about the topic of today, Joel. Would you like to introduce yourself for our audience?
Of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Joel Salmela. I work at Granite with the not so exciting title of project manager, and I have been working with risk management projects for the past 8 years already within the company.
All right, and why are we here? Well, like the title says, it is simple enough: risk management optimized, or how to effectively optimize enterprise risk management within any organization. But what that actually means, we'll get into just a minute. It might not sound like we have a method that is madness, but just make sure we'll try to keep this very short and simple, under 30 minutes. And if you have any question, pop them in the chat, and we'll try to get them at the end. And just a couple of things housekeeping wise. You'll get the recording afterwards, so if you have to excuse yourself for a moment in the middle of it, let's say put out a fire or let the cat out, that's totally fine. You only miss the excitement of a live session, but the recording will reach you in, I believe it's like an hour or a couple hours afterwards the event is over. And like I said, the chat is working throughout the whole session, so if you have anything you would like to know a little bit more about, let us know there. And just because we both have bosses here and we have to report to them, first things first, throw one in the chat if you know what Granite or Granite Partners is, or two if you don't, so I'll know how to short keep this next part of our operation. All right, Eliza already gave us one, or was it Eliza? Anyway, great to hear from you guys. Anyway, keep it simple. Granite is a software company providing different types of risk management and compliance tools for organizations. Very, very, what I would call industry agnostically. We've been doing it since 2005, and at the moment we serve about 200 companies across the globe. And of course, you can learn more about us at Granitegrc.com. Our link will be available to you at the end of this operation. But that said, onto the topic of risk management optimized, and here I will hand it over to Joel, because you know a little bit more about this than I do actually. As we are talking about risk management, I would like to hear, Joel, from you. What do you mean? What does it mean, risk management, in this context? Could you give me like a little bit of a comparison between like an academic approach and what risk management is in concrete action, say?
Yeah, of course. First of all, I'm sorry to say that my accent is not as unhearable as with Antti, and it will probably deteriorate further as the webinar goes on, but I hope you understand me. So from theoretical or academic point of view, what is risk management? Of course, it depends a little bit on who or what you are consulting, but basically you could say that risk management is managing the risks of an organization, risk being possible but uncertain adverse effects that may affect an organization. And through risk management, we try to identify these adverse events. Then we try to assess them. So basically, how serious they are and how likely they are to occur. Then we set up, next in the process, we set up controls to both controls and actions to mitigate these risks to an acceptable level. And finally, of course, part of this process is monitoring the risk, which means that after these controls have been set in place, we still keep monitoring all the risks for changes in our working environment. Maybe we need to reassess the risk, or another new risk pops up, or we need to set up new controls as changes occur. And these days also, it's only now kind of gaining traction in Finland, where I think risk management is a little bit coming behind the rest of the world. Is that besides only negative events or like harmful possible events, risk management also has started to deal with opportunities. So uncertain but possible events that don't have an adverse effect on our organization, but a positive one. And basically, these type of possibilities are managed to a similar process alongside with the risks. Now, in practical terms, what is risk management? I think the academic approach it's pretty practical itself, but in like very people speak type of way, I will say that risk management really is kind of a smooth sailing operation. Okay, so the real objective of risk management is to make sure that our organization reaches its objectives while avoiding the worst pitfalls along the way, and also making use of any possible opportunities that pop up along the way that helps us reach those objectives, whatever they are. So in my mind, risk management is very closely associated with objectives of an organization.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like, so I'm not. If I would put it down, yeah, and you can tell me how far off am I if I were to compare risk management to something like wearing your gumboots in the rain or taking an umbrella with you. How far off am I with that sort of a comparison?
Yeah, this type of approach is okay. I think I usually think that. I kind of, as I said, I think of it as a smooth sailing operation. So sure. I always think of ships and trying to avoid the worst storms, trying to see where they pop up. And also if there is something, maybe nice scenery along the way or a great place to fish or something, then we try to make use of those opportunities. And I can see that there is already a question in the chat. How do you prefer, Antti? Do I answer the question as it comes, or do we wait until the end?
Well, of course, if you can tie it to the next slide that we have here, it would be really great. So Mika would get like a more of a comprehensive, view of the topic. Because to my understanding, that can be quite easily, tied to this. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds okay. So I think I'll answer the question sure. Along with this slide. So next on this slide, of course, we have the GRC triangle or pyramid, as whichever way you want to look at it. And GRC triangle, it consists of these three facets: governance, risk management, and compliance. We already looked at risk management, which basically is like, which we just discussed what it is. Compliance, well, of course, it's the function in an organization that makes sure that we are within the regulations, legislation, and different standards that we adhere to, that bound us, that we do not break those, and we work in accordance with them. And then governance is basically the governing in an organization, all the management decisions are like management processes, all the different procedures, policies, and so on. And the kind of idea with this GRC triangle or pyramid is that if an organization wants to meet its objectives, whatever those are, or like goals, and also while conducting themselves properly, that means basically working ethically and not breaking any laws along the way, it has to have all these different aspects of the GRC triangle under control. So they have to be properly managed and at a high enough level. And these different aspects of the GRC triangle, they are not just independent, but they have they interact with each other. So they can't be siloed and worked on totally independently. So an example of, and of course in the triangle, we also see these different types of objectives or goals that an organization has. So at the lowest level, of course, we want to make sure that we work in compliance with the legislation, standards, and our own processes and policies. And then on the higher level, can you go back to the GRC triangle? Yeah. Sure. And then on the higher level, we want to make sure that we meet our long-term and short-term goals also. And how these different aspects are in interaction with each other is basically, if we start from the bottom right, compliance, so this different legislation and different standards, regulation, they usually gives us requirements on how we conduct our risk management and also how we govern our organization or business. And then on the other hand, if we look at risk management typically through risk management, we manage our compliance risk. So basically, through risk management, we want to make sure that we are in compliance with all these regulations that affect us. And then on the other hand, through risk management, we give important information for better decision making and governing the organization. And then from top down, the governance aspect is very, very important for setting up good, well-working risk management and compliance functions. Because through governance, all the responsibilities are set, all the inner processes are set, all the policies and procedures that greatly affect how compliant we are with different requirements, and also how well we are able to set up our risk management function. So this is basically the GRC triangle, and we will probably return to this in more detail a little bit later.
Sure.
I think before you move on, I could actually, at this point, I could give an example of an opportunity. So I think there are two schools of thought for this. When I was back in school, and this was kind of a new thing to think about opportunities as part of risk assessment and risk management, it was very much about thinking that every risk that we may have, for example, that they also must have, they usually, besides maybe like some hazard risks, they usually have some kind of upside that we can also use. So for example, a good example would be like the camera industry. Okay, once we started moving from film to digital, the risk, of course, was for a lot of these camera and film shop development shops was that the technology that they were working with was getting obsolete and they would be out of business. But then the turn side of this, the opportunity was that they would change their earning model. For example, this kind of a film shop that I remember from my childhood, where you will take a roll of film to develop it, they could maybe change their working model so that they take past pictures mainly, or maybe that they sell some kind of digital services for your hosting needs or something, or they sell digital cameras or something like this. So this was how opportunities in relation to risk management were thought back then. But these days, more and more, I think that the opportunities are not thought just in conjunction with these possible adverse effects, but also as independent phenomena. So if we think of risk as a possible occurrence that may happen, we then think of opportunity kind of in the same way. It's a possible thing that might happen or might not happen that we identify while we are doing this risk identification work. And for example, we maybe notice that there is a possibility that we get a big contract in maybe constructing industry. But then it's just a possibility. But once we have identified this opportunity to make this big contract, this business opportunity, then we can start like assessing how probable it is and how big of an opportunity it will be through its consequences. And then we can set up these like different actions and controls to make it more probable, or on the other hand, make it even more profitable for us. So these are examples of both of these types of opportunities that are usually discussed in conjunction with risk management.
Definitely. Hopefully that gives Mika a little bit of something to think about. Next on the slides here, we have this. Probably, if you've taken part in our webinars or other opportunities we talk about, you've probably seen this before, and I'm quite sure this is nothing new to anyone here. But when it comes to the question whether you're getting the most out of your risk management, I believe that it's the best approach through a rubric like this one, as your risk management maturity pretty much defines what you can actually do to optimize your risk management. But before Joel tells us what that actually means and how you should probably go about it, and maybe you could give me, as a dummy person who doesn't really know about this, what this risk management maturity model actually means.
Yeah, of course. Like this is, I think, risk management maturity model itself is a great tool for assessing where you are in the field of risk management, but also it can be helpful for like optimizing your risk management efforts, which we will get to a little bit later. But to give the basics of this, I think we have touched on this in some earlier webinar, maybe even an international one or just Finnish one. I'm not sure.
Probably we did it last spring. I somehow recall that we might have touched upon it, but it's all. I'm like, it's always bears to bring up again, I think.
Yeah. Of course. I'll remind a little bit. So basically, the maturity level defines how mature, how advanced the risk management culture and risk management processes are in an organization. And to go through these levels, when an organization reaches the first step of this this maturity model, on first level, the main thing is just that the organization has realized that risk management as an actual function, as an actual discipline exists, and realizes its importance. Okay, at this level, sometimes organizations, they start like documenting some of their risks. They have some kind of risk list of like risks that they may have, but typically these risks, this kind of risk management work is kind of like ad hoc, pretty random, and these risks are not properly assessed through any like proper framework, and no controls are typically set in place. But I don't want to really like how do you say, dump on this first ladder, because we often talk in risk management field that the most important part of risk management is the risk identification, that we at least know what kind of adverse effects there are that may affect our organization. Okay, then we move on to level 2. Level 2, the main difference to level 1 is basically that we start really assessing our risks and setting up some kind of controls to maybe mitigate them a little bit. But at this level, typically, risk management is done reactively. And by this, I mean, not only that risks are typically like you notice that, oh my God, like there is some imminent danger right next to us, and we start to do some kind of like catastrophe management at the last moment. But also reactive, I mean that typically at this level, risk management is done because legislation or some other standard that we are bound to through our stakeholders or something, through our industry, requires us to do risk management. So we kind of have to do it, and it is just something that we have to do. And then, of course, we don't really maybe put our heart into it fully. We don't have a really clearly defined process. It's kind of random. We just do it because we have to. And the kind of effects of it and the results that we get are not very useful. Besides maybe like meeting the requirements of the law or other regulation. Level 3, I think, is a big step, because the main difference here is that there is actually big changes, because at level 3, we should have our risk management at the level where we have defined processes for it, we have defined responsibilities, procedures, and we are doing risk management or like risk assessments regularly through some coherent framework. Okay, so it's a big jump from like level 2. But if you listen carefully, you heard me say we do risk assessments on regular intervals. So it basically means that it's not a continuous process, but that we maybe do risk assessment. We are like, oh, this is great. We have all this risk. We have assessed them. We have some controls that define that we want to put in place. And then we basically just put the risk assessment away until we maybe return to it 1 year later. And the problem is once we have completed this kind of risk assessment, it starts getting sour. It gets out of date, and it's more and more out of date until the next time we do it again. Okay? And there is a lot of things that can happen in a year. There is a lot of things that we may miss because of it, or that we react to too late, because we only start maybe identifying risks again or reassessing risks next year. So this is kind of a good jump to level 4. So at level 4, the main difference to level 3 is that risk assessments are or like risk management work is continuous. So, and usually it's also adapted to the whole organization, so that everyone in the organization is doing this kind of risk management work. So what this means is that we have processes and policies and procedures in place that enable us to basically do continuous risk management, which means that when we notice a new risk, we manage it, we assess it, and we set up controls immediately. Or if we notice a change in some risk that we have already identified earlier, we notice, oh, this is changing, we do that work right away, and we think whether we need to set up new controls or to change the controls that we have in place. But we are doing this risk management work continually. And of course, you can maybe understand that setting up this kind of risk management approach requires a lot more from the management of an organization and the policies and also the tools that we have for risk management. And then level 5, I think it's kind of like a level 4 plus. At this point, of course, the risk management should be like continuous, but by latest at this level, risk management should be at the level where it's really providing information for strategic level decision making. So these are the highest objectives that we have, strategic objectives that an organization has. So it kind of needs to be qualitatively better, where it can provide relevant information for that. And also we need to have processes in place at this level where we can continually improve our risk management itself. So not only are we continuously doing risk management, but we are also we have processes in place to improve it. And these are the main ways that these for level 4 and level 5 differ from each other.
Great. And here's a quick task for the audience there. I'm going to pull up a poll here, so only that we can know how to, when we get to the actual optimizing risk management, we know a little bit more about how Joel should approach it. On the right there should be a poll. Just click where do you see your organization being at the moment in regards to risk management maturity. It would, help us quite a bit to know how we should align this operation. All right, we're already getting some answers in, and perhaps what do you think, Joel? Are we ready to? Well, this is really quickly, and of course I'm talking quickly because I want to keep it short and quiet. We probably won't make it under 30 minutes, but 35 is good, if that's possible. Where do you want to go from here, Joel?
I think next we could talk about what might be relevant for risk management for each of these levels.
Sure.
So we could work on this slide, but maybe you could actually take one step back and go back to a GRC triangle.
All right, definitely.
Okay. So basically, when we think about risk management through these maturity levels that we were just looking at, At these lowest levels, being basically level 1, level 2, maybe level 3 a little bit. At level 1 and level 2, the main things are the bases of the pyramid. So it's risk management and compliance. So through risk management, what we are really trying to approach, maybe, of course, we can have different kinds of risks there identified and assessed, but the main risk that we are trying to really get under control is the compliance risk. So the risk that we are not in compliance with different kinds of regulation. And also, like, the main motivation for setting up this kind of risk management is the compliance perspective. And the goal of risk management at this level is just to meet this lowest level of these objectives that we have here. So it's to be in compliance with processes and standards and regulations. As we move upwards in the maturity model, so to level 3, level 4, level 5, the more important, as we start reaching a level where we actually where the objective of risk management is to help us achieve our operative and at higher levels strategic goals, the more important is the governance aspect, because to have a kind of a system or like a process in place where we can do even regular project risk assessments, not even discussing about or even more so talking about continuous risk management. The more important is that we have a governance model where we have policies, management models, responsibilities and policies in place where this kind of system is actually possible. And so to reach these higher levels, it really becomes like kind of a governance heavy thing. And then at these higher levels, it starts really becoming about how governance affects both risk management and compliance as well. And then at higher level, at level 5, at that level at latest, we need to have a situation where risk management starts giving up information up to governance for strategic decision making. I'm having trouble with English today, but yeah, to really give information there. And then if you go to the next slide.
Sure. Was this one the one that you were looking for?
Yes. This is good for this. Now the important thing is that when we start setting up goals to raise the maturity level of our risk management, is that we often have this thinking that we have to raise our risk management as a whole to a higher level. I'm using my hands a lot as well, but that doesn't matter. So, but the important thing is that we live in a reality where we have scarce resources, which means that we don't have infinite resources. We can't do everything at once. So I think it's very important that we really consider what kind of business we are running, what industry we are in, what kind of organization are we working in, and what are our objectives in our organization. And then instead of raising our risk management as a whole to a higher level, we start identifying what kind of risk management is most important for us to start prioritizing for rising to higher maturity levels. So for example, this can be just raising at first information security risk management or workplace safety risks or something like this. For example, we in Granite, we work in software industry, or we do cloud services. So even from the get-go, we had this goal that we had to set up our information security risk management to a relatively high level, 4 or 5, almost from the get-go of as we started operations, but we had to get there very fast. But then when we think of our workplace safety risks, then they are basically maybe ergonomics and stress management and stuff like this. Not so severe compared to some other industries. So for that one, at first, our goal can be just to reach level 2. So we are in compliance with the law. And then put most of our resources to our information security and data protection risk management, for example. And this way we get to start working on those kinds of risk management types that are most important for our business model. For example, for some other industry, maybe manufacturing, it can be the other way around, that information security, of course, it's important in manufacturing as well, but maybe not so critical. But in manufacturing, like workplace safety is very important. And if that's not under control, the consequences are pretty much terrible. It's death or mauling. So even from the get-go, they need to have their workplace safety risk management at a high level. So they have to prioritize that, bring it to like level 4 even, level 5 even, and make sure that their information security risk management is maybe at like level 2, level 3. So we are not breaking the law. We are in accordance with the different regulations, but it doesn't have to be that high from the get-go. We can work on it later when we have like the most important type of risk, which could be like workplace safety, when we have that like under control. And so it's kind of the same as when we do risk assessments themselves. So we identify risks, and then we assess them to see which ones are most critical. And typically, when we start setting up controls, we start from the most critical ones, because for those are the most important for us, and we get the best return for the controls that we maybe put in place. So it's very much the same thing when we start thinking of what is the most critical type of risk management that we need to do. And I also think it's very important that the tools that we have in place kind of reflect this. So for example, Granite is like a modular platform, which means that you can get started with just like information security risk management, and then get started with that, get it to help your risk management maturity level go up for information security, and then later purchase as an add-on, maybe workplace safety or data protection or continuity management or something like this.
Okay. So if I understand you correctly, the big issue when it comes to optimizing risk management has to do with the objectives you've set for your risk management. What do you want to achieve, be it in the realm of risk management, wider, more comprehensive business objectives, and whether these objectives are aligned with your maturity level. How far off am I?
Yeah, I think that's a very good summary of it.
Okay, Joel. Yes. In your experience, as we are running out of time, I don't want to rush you, but I just want to get folks back to their own businesses as quickly as possible. In your experience, could you sum it up a little bit? What are the most common obstacles or the biggest hurdles organizations face when they bring this sort of a optimization viewpoint to their risk management?
I think for optimizing risk management, of course, I'm thinking this from mainly like a software perspective, because it's where I see. But when we are working with software risk management, we are typically working also with the processes of risk management. And like the biggest hurdle I usually see is that like people try to make these kinds of big leaps. So for example, maybe they purchase all kinds of like Granite modules at once. Sure. Okay. It can work if you have the proper resources to also like adapt all of these. But too often I see that even if you have resources for money to purchase all these like tools, then you lack the resources to properly like kind of set them up in your organization, which means that setting up processes to use them, and then also make sure that they are adapted properly so that they are actually used in the organization. So, and what this usually means that when you try to do all of this at once, is that none of it is done properly. Yeah. Instead, and it means that it kind of like maybe for you the most critical type of risk management is the information security risk management. And then it also suffers because even that is not done properly. Instead, if you start maybe with just that information security risk management, you set it up properly, you adapt it properly, it goes great. You get that up to a high level already. And then you can start working on like get more add-ons, start working on workplace safety and so on. Sure. So that's like, so I really think that it's more important to like make incremental like improvements in your risk management than try to like rush it to like completely to the other end of the maturity model. Secondly, I would say that another big problem is that people kind of they get stuck with details, which means basically that we are maybe adapting some kind of tool for risk management for a person, for like an organization, and it needs some customization or something. Maybe like some changes in a drop-down option or something. So what happens is that we are so close, we are almost at like the goal line to getting to do actual risk management work. But instead, we start like tinkering with this single like drop-down option that is not typically too critical, and it postpones the whole starting of the like risk management work because we try to be perfect from the get-go. Instead, what I suggest is that people should that it's more better to aim for good enough, because so you aim for good enough, you decide, okay, it's not perfect, but it's good enough to use. You start doing the risk management work, you start identifying risks, assessing them, setting up controls, and then as you use it, you actually notice what you need to improve. And then you can kind of make more informed decisions on what actually perfect looks like. So instead of like getting hung up on details and going for perfection, I would aim for good enough and then focus on continuous improvement.
Okay.
And then finally one more is to use proper tools at the proper place. For example, like Excel, I think, is a great tool. I would use it myself for like maybe counting like the risk value of a single or risk provision of a single project or something. But I would not use it for like leading risk management work in my organization because it's not meant for that. But then on the other hand, like Granite, it works great for like leading risk management work, but because it's intended for that. But I would not use it to maybe model in detail some like particular project risk or something like this.
Okay. On that note, I would like to ask you, Joel, just sum it up. Just key takeaways, like 1 or 2 key points you would like to folks have when we finally let them go, from here, and what they could actually apply in their own risk management operations. What do you think is the most critical thing?
Yeah, to summarize quickly, like the most important takeaways. I think number 1 is to make like your organization's goals and objective the basis of everything. You should derive the goals for your risk management and your risk management maturity levels from your organization's goals and objectives. So, and what this means is that we get the second main takeaway is that you should like prioritize and focus on most critical things. So when you improve your risk management, start on the types of risks and the type of risk management that is most critical for your organization. Don't try to like rush everything to high level. Focus on what's important. And then thirdly, it's what I just said is about not getting caught up in details. Like there is, I like to read Sun Tzu and stuff like this, and somewhere there or somewhere else it said that like no plan like survives first contact with enemy, and it same goes for risk management tool and risk management process and all kinds of like business as well. So that like it's kind of useless to try to go for perfect tool, for example, or perfect process in risk management beforehand, before you go to practical work, because you will notice that it will not be perfect, because reality always hits at the face like with open palm. So instead, you try to set up good enough to get started. You go to practical risk management work, and then you get like experiences, feedback from that, and then you continuously improve.
All right.
That way
That sounds very, very, very insightful. Hopefully folks will be able to take that with them at home. We already had like a question from Mika there. If anyone else has anything to ask, just pop it in the chat. We'll try to answer them quickly. And as well, I would like to advertise our next webinar in January. I'll pop up a link. You can already sign up, sort of save the date. And it's great that Joel managed to pull up these sort of goals and objectives. As we are talking next year, we're talking about a little bit more about risk and opportunity management, not just risk management as such. So if that interests you, you can already sign up here, or when the recording reaches you through email, the link will be there as well. Other things, if you are interested in Granite and what we offer, I'll pop a couple of links in the chat as well, so you can actually, learn more a little bit more about us. And perhaps if any of this stuff interests you, get in touch any way you want to. Use email, or I'm also in LinkedIn, open network, so just you can reach out through there as well if any of this interests you. On that note, I think we've reached the end of our slide. So, Joel, I thank you for your time. I thank everyone on the other end for giving us our 41 minutes to talk about risk management, and hope to see you next year. Joel, do you want to play us out? Do you have anything to say?
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks. And we are off now. Bye.